Hello and welcome to this terrible lighting situation. It is so unbelievably grim, the weather today. I mean, it's like 1:30 in the afternoon and it feels like it's 6 o'clock in the evening. It's so dark and so grey and I just feel so ugh from the whole thing of it. It's just awful. And I know you're wondering, like, so this is the best lighting situation we got right now. And once again, I am absolutely knackered. And I think I might now have some idea about why that's the case. Because I've talked about this, I think, in a couple of videos where I've said I'm just feeling really tired. And I don't understand why, because I'm sleeping more now than I definitely was, like, say, a year ago when Oren was younger and still waking up in the night. But I feel more tired now, and I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, he's got easier in terms of his sleep. I'm getting decent amounts of sleep. I know it's grey today and I always feel worse when the weather's bad, but like, I shouldn't be as tired as I am for the amount of stuff that I'm doing and like the amount of sleep that I'm getting. So anyway, I had my blood test 2 weeks ago. It might have been last week you saw it on the video because I've had to move a couple of videos around to do with sponsorships and stuff. But I think by the time you see this video, you would have at least seen a previous video where I talked about having had a blood test done. So anyway, I had that blood test done and I got some of the results back this week from the doctor. She sent me an email with like the results on it. And basically my folate level is lower than it should be, and I think that possibly means I'm slightly anemic. I'm not sure. She basically said to me, it looks like your folate's low, so we can do something about that, but she's waiting to speak to a haematologist and they're just going to get back to me next week. But I have a suspicion that they're going to need to redo the test first to confirm it before they do any treatment or anything, or they give me any medication, which I think is just taking folic acid, which is relatively simple. So I'm really hopeful that there is something we can do and that is the reason I'm tired and it's a solvable problem, because I'm sick and tired of being tired at this point in time. It's just absolutely absurd. This week, for example, like I've barely had Oren for the entirety of the week, but this is the first week that he's done 3 days in nursery, and today's Friday, it's his third day. And I thought, you know, this is great, like I'm going to have a week to, you know, more time to be really productive, get some good cleaning done around the house, get some extra work done, do all these things, and I've just been far too tired to do it. And I'm like, this is absurd, like what is going on? Now, admittedly, earlier in the week, I was ill, and so that's why I wasn't feeling so great. Sunday night, I spent like a few hours in the night waking up feeling sick and being sick. And so on Monday, I had to like SOS my mum in the morning when I woke up because I'd had like 3 hours of sleep and I was still feeling really grim, and just say, could you come and help me? We were actually supposed to be going to do a photo shoot, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute, in the afternoon, but ended up having to cancel that. But she came and she watched him, thank God for me. And I mean, I would have survived, but it was one of those days where I really felt like I did need somebody else here to help me. And I was able to nap a couple of times in the day just to kind of catch up on some of the sleep I'd missed and to hopefully feel a bit better. Tuesday I felt better, but because and that was the day that my parents were supposed to have Oren for me, but because I'd had to call my mum the day before, I said to her, well, why don't you have him just in the morning, I'll get some work done. And then at lunchtime I was already planning to meet a friend just for a quick coffee, and it happened to be nearer to my parents' house, so I said, well, why don't I do that and then go back to yours, and I'll have him for the afternoon, I'll help you have him for the afternoon at your house. So they only had him for half a day that day. And that was fine, I did that. And then Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, he's at nursery, so that was fine. But yeah, I've just been feeling so much more tired than I think is normal for me. And particularly because, like, as I said, Oren's a good sleeper. He goes down at 6:30. He sometimes sleeps till like 7:30, 8. More normally 7:30. This morning he woke up a bit early, around 7. But like, that's still a very good amount of sleep. I could be getting a great amount of sleep. But try as I might, like I go to bed relatively early and I just can't fall asleep at that point. And then I'll get a good chunk, like I can get a good solid 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours of sleep. But I can function on a relatively small amount of sleep. So I was feeling like this level of tiredness did not feel just like not getting enough sleep tired. It felt like something was wrong tired. You know, do you know what I mean? Like you can tell when you're ill tired versus just, you know, haven't had enough sleep tired or have been out too late the night before tired. That kind of fatigue, and this just felt different. So I'm really hoping that it is something that we can get on top of quite quickly, because it's not fun. But don't get me wrong, like I can still do stuff. I can still do my work, and I was able to go and see like some friends this morning. So my mum friends were getting together, and even though I don't have Oren, I don't get very much chance to see them anymore because we're all back at work now. We've all got different schedules and it just doesn't seem to happen as frequently. And so I was kind of like thinking, oh, well, I'll go and just have a quick coffee with them this morning. And so that's what I did, and that was nice. But I said, I've come back now and I'm just feeling like, I'm really just lethargic, and I'd like to get myself in a better place health-wise. So that's why I went and saw this doctor, and she's done this test. And I think she's also going to do a much more in-depth blood test after this one too. But my thyroid came back fine. My blood sugars came back fine because I was a bit worried about that, because I've been getting like these episodes where anytime I ate something even slightly sweet, or even one time when I didn't eat something slightly sweet, I was going really heady and like feeling quite sick afterwards. And I hadn't eaten very much, and it was just like, it was really restricting what I could do because I was feeling so ill after it. Has seemed to have calmed down a bit though the last 2 weeks, thank God. Like I haven't had as many episodes of feeling sick or heady like after I've eaten, because that was really impacting my quality of life, where I was like scared to go out and have a bite to eat with somebody in case I have one of these head rushes. But I've become a little bit more careful about what I'm eating and at what times, and it just kind of like keeping it snacking and stuff, and that seemed to be fine. And as I said, the blood test I had was a fasting blood test, so I had to fast for 12 hours before I had it done. And my blood sugar came back absolutely fine, so I was really relieved about that. But yeah, aside from my bilirubin, which is always elevated because I have a condition called Gilbert syndrome, which is just a genetic thing and it doesn't cause any significant problems. Can cause fatigue, but I've had it for so long that I think this doesn't feel like it's linked to that. Aside from that, it was just the folate that came back, and I think that's the first time, I can't remember. I've definitely had a doctor talk to me about something beginning with F before, but I can't remember whether it was folate or ferritin. And my ferritin levels were fine in this test, but it was just my folate ones that were off. So I can't, as I said, I'm not entirely sure whether it was the same one last time I went to the GP and they did some tests they said was a bit low, or if it's a different one this time. But anyway, we'll see what happens, and hopefully it is treatable. So the photo shoot that didn't end up happening in the end on Monday because I was ill was something that I was wanting to talk about in here, because it created an interesting dilemma for me personally, where I don't share Orin's face online now that he's turned 1. And even before that, I was kind of like really careful with what I shared and what I didn't. But recently we got the option to take part in basically like a free photo shoot for a company, and they're not a big company by any means. They're kind of like they're one of these like colour, what do you call them, like consultant companies? Basically, like this, for example, this is one of my colours. I'm a winter. The lighting might not be showing it off best at the moment, but it is one of my colours. And my mum is really into like the whole colours thing. She's a spring, I'm a winter, Orin's a winter as well. And she took Orin to her friend who did her colours and did my colours just for a coffee, and she casually draped some colours on him to be like, oh yeah, he's a winter, which I'm pretty sure he was because we've got the same kind of skin tone, but you know, it's kind of interesting to have that confirmed. But anyway, so she is part of this company, I think called House of Colour, and they were doing like a photo shoot, a couple of photo shoots like around the country that you could register to be a part of. And the kind of the deal for doing this was that if you did the photo shoot for them, they would use it for their content, for their online content and stuff, but they would also give you some free professional shots in return for that. And I was kind of like on the fence for this, because my mum said, well, should we sign all of us up together as a family? So it'd be her, me and Orin, so 3 generations, which would be quite cool. And I was like, I do think that'd be really cool, but also that's going to mean that they'll want to have Orin's face in the pictures. And this came like with a dilemma for me, because obviously, as I said, I've not had him on my social media, but also I remember that I was a little bit annoyed when I was young. Oh, annoyed's too strong a word, but like slightly disappointed, I guess, that when I was younger, my mum did actually send some pictures of me as a baby to a modelling company as for like baby modelling stuff, and never took it any further. But I always thought like, oh, it would have been really cool to have been like the baby model for something when I was a kid, because no one recognises you when you're a kid or a toddler, baby or a toddler, on stuff. And it would have just been like a cool story to have, to be like, oh yeah, I was on Pampers at this point, or I was on this magazine or something. Just, you know how you just have a memento of, look, this is you on something. And I kind of thought, actually, you know, how harmful would it be to Orin to take part in this photo shoot? Like, we'd have some nice family photos together for free from it. We'd have hopefully a nice day out together. At least me and my mum would have a nice day. He'd probably cause chaos, but you know, there you go. You know, be a nice event, nice time, get some nice photographs, and in return he'd be on this company site, which is not that popular, to be honest. Not that many people are going to see it. But it would be a little memento. I could say to him, oh look, you were part of some marketing material for this company, because I kind of wish I'd had that as a baby myself. But then again, it's different because it's social media and it's like a different era. So I had this real like mental, I don't know what the word is, like this weighing up act of like the pros and cons of like letting him have his face in it versus not doing that. But then we wouldn't be able to do the photo shoot, and so we wouldn't have had these pictures, and it was just like, you know, what was the risk benefit of it anyway. And also we weren't getting paid for it, so it wasn't like it was a job that he was doing. It was just a fun event, a fun day that would have some pictures, and as part of that, this company would use it as some marketing material. Anyway, I did decide in the end that I was going to sign us up to do it. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it because I don't think it's something that he's going to grow up and as a teenager go, Mum, I can't believe you let me do this, can't believe you let me have a photo on this. And as I said, it's not a major company, he wasn't being paid for it, it was a fun family thing, and I just thought, you know what, we'll just, you know, I think I'm gonna make an exception to this rule. And also it's different from this because the thing is, this is my job at the moment, like, this is what I get paid for, and so it would kind of be like him being part of my job and part of the earning process of getting paid, if that makes sense. This is my brain and how like I was connecting this together, whereas that was just a fun thing that was like a one-off, and would hopefully be fun for all of us. So, but it was interesting, like me having to kind of to think about it in a different frame and kind of make a decision and in a different context to how I usually have to think about sharing his face online. And so I just wanted to share like how I did that and kind of came to a different decision. In the end, turned out to be pointless because we didn't end up doing the photo shoot because I was ill. So it was all, well, not all for nothing. But I think if another opportunity came up like that again, depending on his age and how he is at the time, I would consider it again, because I think it is something kind of nice, at least to have like one occasion where you can kind of put in his memory box, or look, you were part of the marketing material for this company and stuff. Because as I said, I kind of wish I'd had that to look back on now as an adult, that my mum had done something like that with me when I was a kid. Whereas, and I don't think, you know, as I said, this wasn't paid, so I don't think it would have been a harmful thing, and it would probably have been a fun thing and something nice to look back on. But it did require me to have to put some mental energy into thinking about like the pros and cons of it and how I felt about it in a different context. So that was interesting. Following along from that thread of kind of like as parents having to make decisions about our children and constantly weighing up pros and cons to things, there's something else that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and that has to do with certain things that I think are good to force our children to do. And what I mean by that is that obviously, like, through kind of more of a therapeutic or gentle parenting style, we're really keen to encourage our children to have full bodily autonomy and to be able to say yes and no to things, and to have a say in decisions about things that happen to them. But equally, there are times where actually we have to make decisions for them as an adult that they can't make a fully informed decision about. Healthcare, for example. You know, Oren has had all his vaccines. He doesn't want them, obviously. They're a needle in your arm. Nobody wants to have that done. But for your greater good, sometimes you have to do that. The same way that we have to go have medical tests done and blood tests and stuff. We don't particularly want a needle stuck in our arm. But, you know, if we're sick and we need to find out what's wrong, we know we have to do that. And that's stuff that as adults we can hopefully weigh up the pros and cons too sensibly, but a child is less able to do that. But something else that I've been thinking about a lot more along these lines is when it comes to learning a second language. Because my mum can speak French and a bit of Spanish too, actually. She's not French or Spanish, but she studied them at university. So whenever we go away to France, which is relatively frequently, I'd say, she can have a conversation with the locals, or with, you know, in the supermarkets with people. She can converse in French quite easily. She's not fluent, but she's definitely at a conversational level. Whereas my French is very basic at best. I probably know a bit more than some of my friends who didn't really pay attention at all, but I don't know enough to have like a proper conversation with someone in French. And it's something that I've always slightly regretted. And I even at one point actually paid for some private lessons, some private French lessons when I had moved out. So when I was living here, there's a French tutor not too far away, and I used to go once a week. But in the end, I had to give it up because of cost and time, and it was also getting, you know, it's harder to learn a second language the older you get. And I'm aware that Oren is at an age where he's quite young and he could potentially do this. And I'm like, I kind of wish that my mum had put more pressure on me to learn second language, or had been more strict in sending me to language lessons. Whether I'd have done it, you know, is debatable. I was a pretty strong-willed kid, but I do think it would have been helpful to have more of a second language, to be able to speak a second language more than I currently am able to. One of the reasons I've been really thinking about this particular topic as well around like languages is because Oren is obviously donor conceived, and his donor is from another European country. And whilst I know that his donor does speak English, and so there's no issue in terms of there being a barrier to communication in the future if Oren does want to make contact with him, I'm also aware that like that's a connection to his part of his heritage, and so trying to weigh up like the balance of connecting him to that, but also not wanting to pressure him into learning a language. But then also I do think learning a second language is really useful, and I kind of wish someone had pressured me to do it a bit more. So I'm like, you know, where are my boundaries going to be on this? I definitely think I'm going to put him in for some lessons for this particular language for the country that his donor's from, at least so he has at least a little bit of knowledge about that. But how far I'm going to push it, I'm not kind of sure at the moment whether I'm going to do that. Or even if like I let him learn that language and then another one, because as I said, my mum speaks French, I speak a bit of French, we go to France quite often, so maybe that one too. And then I'm just like, I just really don't know on this topic. I'm really torn about it because, like I said, I feel like I wish I'd had more pressure to, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but been encouraged more to really stick with it. But equally, because, you know, let's take France as an example, with French, learning French myself, even though my family and I, we go away relatively often to France, still only once or twice a year where you might use it for a few days. And then back here, like, we don't really speak French. I sometimes speak very small bits of French to my mum. We kind of communicate with each other that way. But then, you know, we don't really have any kind of French community here where we'd be speaking it frequently. And so I think inevitably, if you're not using it on a regular basis, you lose that language. So yeah, I just don't know. It's something I'm very much thinking about at the moment. I mean, we haven't got to grips with English yet. He's only just started to say 1 or 2 words at the moment in English. So it's not something I'm super concerned about right now, but it is something that's very much on my mind of like, do I really try to introduce him to the language from his donor's country so he has like some connection to that? Do I leave it up to him when he's older if he wants to? Do I like really try and encourage him to learn a second language, even if it's not necessarily the one his donor's from, just so he has that extra ability, and because I think it's quite nice to be able to converse with people in another language? Or am I just overthinking all of this, which is probably the answer to this? But I would be interested, those of you who maybe come from another culture, perhaps you speak another language, or perhaps you don't speak another language as fluently as you would like. How are you navigating that with your own children, or what you think you might do with your own children if you haven't had them yet? It's something I'm really interested to know, because I've seen a few adults who, you know, were definitely encouraged to learn a second language when they were younger, and they didn't really enjoy it when they were younger, but now as adults are really pleased that they do know a second language. And so, yeah, it's, as I said, it was this debate around the fact that there are things that obviously we want our children to have say in, but also some things that we should probably, as adults, be the decision maker on. Health being one, but languages I'm kind of like, I'm not really sure where my line is currently, and it's just something I'm starting to think about. On a completely different topic now, but this is something that I put on my list for things I want to talk about this video this week, because I saw it on, I don't know, TikTok or Instagram or somewhere it originally appeared. But anyway, there was this bike bus that I was looking at, which is based in the US. So basically, rather than kids being dropped off to school in the car by their parents in the morning, there's an area where the parents will bring their kids on their bikes, and then they all cycle together as a bike bus to school. And lots of comments being like, oh, how amazing this is, etc. And I was just like thinking, is it not normal to cycle to school in the States, or to like walk to school? Because I was dropped off by car to school pretty much every day in my senior years, but that's because my school was a 40-minute drive away, which is very unusual where I live. I'm in London. But pretty much everybody else either walks, cycles, or gets public transport by bus, usually, to school here in the UK. Like, unless you live in a really rural area, any town or city, kids can walk there. And also, like, you can walk to school by yourself from year 5, which is like age 9, 10. It's really common to do that. And it just struck me as so bizarre how you have to, like, this is about school, like car lines, this article or something I read about, how it can take an hour just to like drop the kids off at school or pick them up because of these car lines. And I was thinking, this feels absurd. Like, is that normal in America, or is it just this particular area that I was looking at this video from? Because I was really curious about this, because yeah, it's quite, I mean, unless you're driving to work and you're dropping your kids off on the way, pretty much anybody, certainly anybody in a city like London or even like the suburbs, but any town in the UK, pretty much, you will be able to get to school either walking, cycling, or by public transport. Very rarely are you going to be driven every single day to school. That is quite unusual. You might be driven like one way because you have a parent that works somewhere en route and they drop you off. But yeah, I'd say more often than not, like walking, cycling, scooting, yeah, just, it was fascinating to me. That's one of the things I do like about the UK. It's like we have quite a walkable city. Like, you don't have to drive to get everywhere here. You can, like, especially in a town or a city, you can usually get by without a car if you have to. It's easier with a car. I like having a car, but you know, I can catch a train, I can catch a bus. We had the Uber bikes around here as well, the Lime bikes. You can cycle places. Like, there's so much flexibility in how you get about, and you can just walk to the shop to do a quick top-up shop for food. You don't have to get in a car to do it, and that's something I really do like about being in the UK and how like our cities and stuff are designed. But yeah, it was interesting because I know I've heard a lot about how car heavy the States is, but I hadn't realised that like you have to drive your kids to school every day. Like, that just seems bizarre to someone like me and a little bit weird. But yeah, so that was something interesting that I saw and came up, and I was like, oh, I definitely want to talk about that because I'm curious to see, because I know I have quite a lot of US viewers, I'm curious to see how common that is where you are. Because again, as I said, in a rural area, I can understand it. The same here. If you live in a very rural area, you're probably going to be driving to school, although typically schools will have bus services that will pick the kids up for them, which I guess is similar to the States. But yeah, it was kind of interesting to see how different some of these things can be, basically. But anyway, that's all I have for this week. I hope wherever you are in the world, the weather is better than it is here. Although I have to say it is September now, and I always feel like as soon as it turns September here in the UK, it becomes autumn. It's still relatively mild. Like, I'm in short sleeves, and I sent Oren off in short sleeves to nursery today too with a jacket because it was raining. But you know, it's kind of like 18, 19 degrees, so it's kind of, you know, warmish. It's not cold yet, but it's just grey and damp, and yeah, autumn is very much on the way. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Do please subscribe. Thank you so much to my Precious Star Superstar members who give me a little bit of extra support each month. It's always really appreciated. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you all next week. Wherever you are in the world, you're having a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.